Xiao Yan spotted an ancient bronze fragment at the trading fair. Unexpectedly, just as he was about to acquire it, someone else intervened. In the previous chapter, Xiao Yan easily earned the intermediate 7th tier alchemist badge at a test site in Dan City. Furthermore, he sent an old woman from the By family, who had been mocking him as useless, flying with a single punch. This sudden act caused a chill to run down the spines of the onlookers, especially the 3 By family members, who took several cautious steps back. After all, if even the Dozong powerhouse in gray could not withstand a single move from Xiao Yan, they certainly stood no chance. The chief examiner, Hanli, was equally stunned. It seemed that when this guy got serious, he was quite formidable. Xiao Yan, with a cold gaze, glanced at the old woman lying on the ground, then turned to Hanli and said politely, "Elder Han, I apologize for causing trouble here." Hanli responded, "Well, she kind of brought this upon herself, but you were a bit too harsh. Let it be. By way, take her away." As the By family members left dejectedly, Yizhong's expression grew serious. Although the earlier scene had been satisfying, it also meant they had thoroughly antagonized the By family. It was certain that the By family would now send their best for the upcoming assessment. According to Hanli, the most outstanding young talent in the By family was a young man named Bai Ying. Reportedly, he had reached the level of an intermediate 7th tier alchemist before the age of 30 and had maintained this level for nearly 2.5 years. His alchemical talent was said to surpass even Qiao Dan of the Qiao family. Currently, the Yi family had already made enemies with both the Bai and Qiao families. Hence, these two families would undoubtedly send troublesome candidates to hinder the Yi family. If Bai Ying were to participate in the assessment, the outcome would be unpredictable. Seeing Yizhong's troubled look, Hanli reassured him not to worry too much. He observed that Xiao Yan was not someone to be underestimated and might be able to hold his own against the other family's prodigies. Hearing this, Yizhong smiled. In this situation, all his hopes rested on Xiao Yan. The survival of the Yi family depended on the results of this assessment. Afterward, Xiao Yan and Yizhong toured the Pill Tower's outer region and arrived at a trading area. However, after spending an entire afternoon browsing, Xiao Yan did not find anything of significant value. According to Yizhong, a trading conference for alchemists would be held here the day after tomorrow, where unexpected treasures might appear if one were lucky. Hearing this, Xiao Yan's eyes lit up with excitement. His Skyfire 3 mysterious changes had been acquired at a similar trading fair in the Jiamar Empire. He wondered if he would be just as fortunate this time. As the assessment date for the 5 major families approached, Xiao Yan entered seclusion for 2 days to refine pills. He aimed to enhance his alchemical skills and produce some valuable pills to trade for items of interest at the upcoming trading conference. On the 3rd day, the closed door finally opened, and Xiao Yan's group, led by Yizhong, arrived at the alchemist trading conference. According to Yizhong, the first floor was the most basic area. To find truly valuable treasures, one needed to go to the second or top floors, which had entry requirements. However, with Xiao Yan's status as a 7th tier alchemist, and with the Dozuns, Little Fairy Doctor and the Dozun of Fire, as his bodyguards, they had no trouble accessing these areas. As soon as Xiao Yan stepped onto the 2nd floor, his gaze was drawn to a jade box on a stone platform. Inside was a blood essence demon fruit, one of the key ingredients needed to refine the bone marrow fusion pill. This 7th tier peak pill was essential not only for refining Elder Pill's body, but also for the upcoming pill competition. Xiao Yan had never wavered in his resolve to resurrect Elder Pill over the years. After some negotiation, Xiao Yan traded a mid-7th tier pill for the blood essence demon fruit. Now, he only needed 2 more ingredients to refine the bone marrow fusion pill: the eternal green spirit vine and snow bone ginseng. On the top floor, he found the snow bone ginseng with an elderly vendor. Although the old man looked rather unkempt, he bore a 7th tier alchemist badge on his chest, indicating his expertise. As Xiao Yan prepared to trade a mid-7th tier pill for the snow bone ginseng, his eyes fell on a rusty bronze fragment in the corner of the stall. Upon closer inspection, Xiao Yan noticed the fragment's intricate patterns, but couldn't discern anything unusual about it. As Xiao Yan pondered over the fragment, the voice of the Dozun of Fire suddenly sounded in his ear. "Xiao Yan, if possible, acquire that bronze fragment. I have seen those patterns before. they are of ancient origin. Although its exact use is unknown, anything connected to ancient times is never simple. Xiao Yan was taken aback to learn that the fragment might be an ancient artifact. Despite his shock, he maintained a calm demeanor, appearing only mildly curious about the piece. However, his subtle interest did not escape the elderly vendor, who admitted he did not know the fragment's true purpose but recognized the patterns from ancient texts, confirming its ancient origin. Upon hearing this, curious and skeptical glances were cast towards the copper fragment in Xiao Yan's hand. Everyone knew that anything linked to ancient times was rarely simple. However, they found it hard to believe that this unremarkable fragment had any ancient significance. Xiao Yan asked, "So, what do you want in exchange for this copper fragment, sir?" The elderly vendor replied, "A prescription for a high-level 7th-tier pill." Xiao Yan rolled his eyes at the exorbitant demand and said, "That's too expensive. Even if this copper fragment is indeed ancient as you say, it's impossible to appraise its value based solely on some patterns. Forget it. I'll just trade for the snow bone ginseng." With that, he retrieved a mid-7th-tier pill named the Pure Heart Pill from his storage ring. The old man's eyes lit up at the sight, as the Pure Heart Pill was extremely beneficial to alchemists. He often prepared a few of these pills to aid in his own alchemy, but the highest level pill he could make with such effects was only a low-level 7th-tier pill. It wasn't that he lacked the ability to refine higher-tier pills. He simply didn't have the prescriptions. The old man said, "All right, I'll compromise. Instead of a high-level 7th-tier pill prescription, how about you trade me the prescription for the Pure Heart Pill?" Xiao Yan was taken aback. The Pure Heart Pill prescription, though not as valuable as a high-level 7th-tier prescription, was still quite precious. Trading it for the copper fragment was slightly beyond his comfort zone. While he hesitated, the Dozun of Fire suggested acquiring the fragment. He assured Xiao Yan that the fragment was indeed ancient, and the old man just didn't know how to unlock its secrets. Hearing this, Xiao Yan nodded slightly. He trusted the Dozun of Fire's extensive knowledge. If he was confident, there must be some merit to it. Xiao Yan agreed to the deal and, with a flick of his wrist, tossed a white scroll to the ragged old man. Seeing the old man's excitement, Xiao Yan smiled and stored the snow bone ginseng in his storage ring. He then reached for the copper fragment. However, at that moment, a purple iron fan struck the copper fragment like a bolt of lightning. A young man in white robes said, "My friend, I have my eye on that fragment as well. Could you let me have it?" Behind the young man stood 3 elderly figures. Xiao Yan's eyes narrowed as he scanned them, noting that 2 of the elders were at the 8-star Dozun level, while the one standing in front had reached the Dozun level. The young man in white said, "Hee, my friend. I can double whatever price you offered. Would you be willing to trade the fragment to me?"
Xiao Yan firmly replied, "No."
As soon as the words fell, the surge of Do Qi within Xiao Yan burst forth, sending the iron fan flying away. The sudden attack caught the white-robed youth off guard, his eyes narrowing coldly. He quickly grabbed the iron fan again and slashed it towards Xiao Yan like a blade. Xiao Yan responded swiftly, pressing the iron fan heavily against the jade platform with a single palm strike. Before the white-robed youth could pull it out, Xiao Yan delivered a powerful roundhouse kick aimed at his face. In this seamless series of attacks, the white-robed youth had no choice but to let go of the iron fan and defend himself. However, his body staggered backwards several steps before he could steady himself. As he retreated, the 2 elderly 8-star Dozun behind him frowned slightly, one of them shouting, "How dare you, boy!" With that, the 2 elders instantly appeared in front of Xiao Yan. Just as they were about to strike, the little fairy doctor and the Dozun of Fire ghosted in front of them. Without a word, the little fairy doctor attacked first, releasing 2 streaks of gray poison. The Dozun elder, who had yet to make a move, finally realized the gravity of the situation. He quickly clasped his hands together to fend off the poison, but a wisp still managed to infiltrate their bodies. Alarmed, they retreated hurriedly, trying to suppress the chaotic Do Qi inside them. Despite their strength, they recognized the formidable power of the little fairy doctor and the Dozun of Fire. Realizing they were likely Dozun level as well, cold sweat formed on their foreheads. It seemed they had kicked an iron plate this time. Seeing this, The white-robed youth was shocked. He quickly revealed his identity, hoping to intimidate Xiao Yan and the others. His name was Chen Xian, the young sect master of the mysterious Abyss sect. Xiao Yan had heard of this sect, known to be on par with the Ice River Valley, if not superior. The mysterious Abyss sect was affiliated with the Heavenly Abyss sect, one of the two renowned sects on the continent. Although aware that the mysterious Abyss sect was no pushover, Xiao Yan wasn't about to hand over the copper piece. After all, he had dared to kill members of the Soul Hall. Why would he fear the mysterious Abyss sect? Xiao Yan said, "I saw this copper piece first and have no intention of giving it up. However, if you have the patience to wait, I might give it to you for free after I've studied it." With that, Xiao Yan prepared to leave, but the two elders blocked his way again. Before Xiao Yan could speak, the little fairy doctor's icy voice rang out, "Get lost within 3 breaths or die." Faced with the little fairy doctor's terrifying aura, the two elders' faces changed again. They knew that if they delayed even for a moment, they might end up as cold corpses on the ground today. Xiao Yan glanced indifferently at the two men who had rapidly retreated, their faces flushed. Then, he turned his head and whispered to Chen Xian, "Do not provoke me, or you won't leave Dan City alive. Trust me." Watching Xiao Yan and his group leave, Chen Xian's expression grew increasingly sinister. "Elder Xian, investigate this person's background. It's the first time in years that I've been threatened. How interesting." Back at their residence, Xiao Yan and his group began to study the bronze fragment with the Dozun of Fire. However, after examining it for half a day, Xiao Yan still couldn't decipher its mysteries. If it were that easy to crack, it wouldn't have fallen into his hands so easily. According to the Dozun of Fire, the secret of the bronze fragment lay within its patina. Perhaps using a different kind of fire would reveal its hidden secrets. After roasting it with the crystal lotus heart fire for over 10 minutes, the patina on the fragment gradually peeled away, eventually turning into 5 grains of light yellow dust. Seeing this, Xiao Yan was slightly perplexed, clearly unfamiliar with this substance. After a moment of confusion, he turned to the Dozun of Fire, who, after a long contemplation, finally exhaled slowly. "If I'm not mistaken, this should be soul-bearing dust from ancient times." Xiao Yan asked, "Soul-bearing dust? What is it used for?" The Dozun of Fire explained that this substance was well known in ancient times, not only as a necessary component for refining 8th tier and higher pills, but also for enhancing the soul's spiritual energy when fused into it, allowing one to step into the so-called spiritual realm. Hearing this, Xiao Yan's eyes lit up with excitement. He hadn't expected this seemingly insignificant substance to have such great potential. Now that it was deciphered, the Dozun of Fire informed Xiao Yan that tomorrow was the assessment day for the 5 great clans before leaving the room. Gazing at the 5 grains of light yellow dust in the fire, Xiao Yan pondered for a moment before waving his hand. One of the soul-bearing dust grains immediately drilled into his forehead. As this strange energy entered his body, Xiao Yan immediately sensed the spiritual energy in the surrounding space slowly merging with his soul. This made him ecstatic. Xiao Yan had tried everything to enhance his spiritual energy, but nothing had worked. Now, with the soul-bearing dust as a medium, he could absorb the spiritual energy of the world. However, after absorbing for about 2.5 hours, the soul-bearing dust gradually dimmed and shattered, and the surrounding spiritual energy abruptly stopped. Witnessing this, Xiao Yan couldn't help but smile wryly. Just as he was about to withdraw from this state in resignation, the dissipating soul-bearing dust suddenly burst into a radiant glow, and he perceived a cryptic incantation from it. It was said that some ancient strongmen could leave soul imprints on objects. If Xiao Yan's guess was correct, the elderly voice he heard earlier was left by an ancient strongman. However, due to the passage of time, the incantation had become very obscure. In his subsequent experiments, Xiao Yan discovered that the incantation could only gather spiritual energy along with the ambient energy of the world. Without a special method to extract the spiritual energy from the multitude of energies, it was impossible to absorb it successfully. At this moment, Xiao Yan felt an overwhelming sense of frustration. After finally sensing the presence of spiritual energy, he realized he couldn't absorb it. After a moment of stunned silence, Xiao Yan decided to use the simplest method of direct absorption. In simple terms, this meant directly inhaling the ambient energy and then using his dou qi to slowly separate the spiritual energy from it. This was a highly demanding task that required exceptional control. Even with Xiao Yan's level of mastery, he failed over 20 times before he finally succeeded in extracting a thread of spiritual energy no thicker than a finger from the mass of energy. Xiao Yan understood that with practice, he could improve the efficiency of this process. Though it still couldn't compare to using a proper method, it at least allowed his soul to become increasingly saturated with spiritual energy. It seemed that reaching the spiritual realm or even advancing to an 8th-tier alchemist was now only a matter of time. The night passed quickly as Xiao Yan dedicated himself to this relentless training. The next morning, when Xiao Yan stepped out of his room, he saw that Yizhong, the little fairy doctor, and the others were already standing in the courtyard. Yizhong asked, "Mr. Xiao Yan, are you ready?" Looking at Yizhong's aged face, Xiao Yan slowly nodded. He knew that today was the day of the so-called assessment of the 5 great clans, and the outcome would determine the future of the Yi family. All of this responsibility rested on Xiao Yan's shoulders. A surge of pride burst from his mouth. "Let's go. Today, let me see what capabilities these so-called 5 great clans possess."